The war horn echoed across the grand Senate hall of the Vexorian Empire. It was not just a sound, it was a warning, a deep, shaking blast that had announced every great conquest for over 3,000 years. Entire civilizations had fallen after hearing that horn. Four-armed High Chancellor Vex stood tall at the center podium. His dark violet scales reflected the chamber lights as he raised his arms in ceremonial authority. "The human alliance has chosen defiance," he thundered. "Today we choose war." The senators roared in approval. Some slammed their tails. Others struck the metal floor with armored fists. Victory felt certain. It always had. And then, a human yawned. Not a small, nervous yawn. A long, lazy stretch. Ambassador Daniel Martinez leaned back in his chair, stretched his arms above his head, and checked the glowing display on his wrist. "Sorry," he said casually. "Did I miss anything important?" The chamber went silent. The silence was heavier than the war horn. Chancellor Vex blinked both sets of eyes. "We have just declared war on your species." "Yeah," Martinez replied calmly. "I heard the horn. Very dramatic. Solid performance." Several senators gasped. One whispered, "Is he unaware of danger?" Another muttered, "Scan him. Something is wrong." Aid scanners confirmed it. His heartbeat was steady, his breathing relaxed. No fear hormones detected. Chancellor Vex leaned forward. "Why are you not afraid?" Martinez tilted his head slightly. "Should I be?" The Chancellor slammed a fist onto the podium. "Our fleets will reduce your worlds to ash." Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "You've been moving those fleets for months now. Hard to miss, especially when you park 4 dreadnought groups near our trade lanes." A ripple of unease spread across the chamber. "You knew?" one senator whispered. "Of course we knew," Martinez said gently. "We track everything. Your supply chain expansions, your fuel shipments, even your media speeches preparing your people for conflict." He smiled faintly. "There was actually a betting pool back home about when you'd finally announce it." The room erupted in angry chatter. "You mock us," shouted Senator Cricks. "No," Martinez said gently. "I'm just saying this isn't new." Chancellor Vex studied him carefully. "You speak as if you have faced this before." His fade faded just slightly. "We have." His voice changed. It was still calm, but heavier. Heavier. "In the last 100 years alone, humanity has fought 4 major galactic powers. Each one thought we were soft, divided, unprepared." He paused. "We're still here." The chamber felt colder. Vex crossed his arms. "You believe you will defeat us." Martinez slowly stood. "I don't believe. I prepare." He glanced toward the tall exit doors. "So here's the question, Chancellor." He gave a small shrug. "Do we start the war now?" A tiny smile returned. "Or after lunch? I heard your cafeteria serves something called roasted sea kelp. I've been curious." Several senators looked confused, but Chancellor Vex did not. For the first time in his long political career, he felt uncertainty. And uncertainty was far more dangerous than fear. 3 days later, 400 Vexorian warships entered human space, expecting surrender. Instead, they were already expected.
3 days later, the Vexorian Fourth Fleet entered human space. 400 warships, engines blazing like blue suns, weapons charged, shields glowing. It was a show of power meant to crush hope before the first shot was fired. Admiral Korvax stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominion's Claw, watching the tactical display with confidence. His armor plates were polished, his posture firm. "Target?" he asked. "Human colony, New Carthage," the tactical officer replied. "Population, 2 million. Defensive capability minimal. No heavy capital ships detected. Korvax allowed himself a slow breath. Perfect. We begin here. Make an example. The colony appeared on screen, peaceful. Clouds drifting across blue oceans, a small orbital station turning slowly in space. It did not look like a world ready for war. Open a channel, Korvax ordered. Before they could send one, "Sir, incoming transmission from the colony." Korvax smiled slightly. They surrender quickly. Signal is civilian origin. The screen flickered to life. Instead of a military commander, a woman appeared. She sat at what looked like an outdoor cafe, a cup of something steaming in her hands. Wind gently moved her hair. In the background, people were walking calmly. She smiled. "Oh, good, you're right on time." Korvax stiffened. "Identify yourself." "Governor Elena Park," she replied cheerfully. "Welcome to New Carthage." Korvax's eyes narrowed. "Do you understand that your system is under invasion?" "Oh, absolutely," she said. "We've had it on the calendar." The bridge crew exchanged confused looks. Park took a slow sip from her cup. "You see that object near your fleet, about 60,000 kilometers off your starboard side?" The tactical officer scanned quickly. Detected. A moon, uninhabited. Park gave a small laugh. "Not exactly." Korvax felt something tighten in his chest. "That's mining platform 12. We hollowed it out about 15 years ago." "And?" he demanded. "And 6 months ago," she continued calmly, "when your fleet movements became obvious, we installed something new inside." The tactical officer suddenly shouted, "Admiral, massive energy signature detected within the moon structure." Alarms began to sound. Power readings spiked rapidly. "What have you done?" Korvax growled. Park's smile softened, but did not disappear. "We built something big." "How big?" he demanded. "Big enough to erase your entire fleet in one shot." Silence filled the bridge. "That is impossible," Korvax said, but his voice lacked strength. "We call it the Horizon Array. It was originally designed to break apart unstable planets for mining operations." She leaned forward slightly. "It has never been used in combat." More alarms blared. "Weapon charging detected." The tactical officer yelled, "Energy levels rising exponentially." Korvax felt cold. "How long?" he demanded. 15-minute charging cycle, 13 minutes remaining." Korvax turned back to the screen. "Deactivate it." "I can't," Park said gently. "Once it starts charging, it must complete the cycle." "Then we are dead?" She shook her head. "No, it's aimed at a fixed coordinate." She paused. "And that coordinate is exactly where your fleet is currently positioned." The bridge went silent. "But here's the good news," she added softly. "If you move your ships anywhere else, you'll be safe." Korvax stared at her. "Why warn us?" For the first time, her smile faded. "Because my son is in school 10 minutes from here, and I don't want him growing up in a galaxy full of graves." The countdown ticked. 12 minutes. 11 minutes. Korvax's claws tightened around his command chair. The humans were not panicking. They were prepared, and that was far more terrifying. With 10 minutes left before annihilation, Admiral Korvax had to make a choice: pride or survival. 10 minutes remaining. The mechanical voice echoed across the bridge of the Dominion's claw. No one moved. 400 warships hung in perfect formation, weapons ready, shields strong. Just minutes ago they had arrived as conquerors. Now they sat like targets.
Admiral Korvax felt heat rising beneath his armored skin. His entire military career had been built on strength, on dominance, on never stepping back. And yet, energy levels are still climbing, the tactical officer whispered. If that weapon fires at full output, there will be nothing left of the fleet. Korvax stared at Governor Park on the screen. "You expect me to trust you?" he asked quietly. She did not look angry. She looked tired. "I expect you to think," she replied. "If we wanted you dead without warning, we wouldn't be talking." A sharp silence filled the bridge. 8 minutes. A junior officer spoke hesitantly. "Admiral, the humans knew we were coming. This weapon was built months ago. They prepared for this exact moment." Korvax's jaw tightened. Prepared. The word felt heavier than any threat. "Why didn't you fire the moment we entered range?" he asked. "Because war spreads," she said softly. "It spreads to children, to cities, to generations." She glanced somewhere off-screen, as if thinking of someone specific. "You declared war in a Senate chamber, but wars are paid for by families." 7 minutes. Korvax's claws dug into the armrest. "You threaten us and speak of peace at the same time," he said. Park shook her head. "No, I'm offering you a door. A door. You step away today. We power down the horizon array, no lives lost. Then we talk, real talks, not speeches. And if we refuse?" Her eyes hardened slightly. "Then in 6 minutes you'll understand why humanity survives every war thrown at it." The bridge crew looked toward Korvax. He saw something in their eyes he had never seen before. Doubt. Not in their strength, but in the outcome. "Admiral," the navigation officer said carefully, "we can reposition outside the target coordinate within 3 minutes." 5 minutes. Korvax felt trapped between history and logic. If he retreated, he would return home marked by hesitation. If he stayed, there might be no home to return to. He looked again at the peaceful human city behind Park. No panic, no chaos, just quiet confidence. "They are not afraid," his first officer whispered. "No," replied Korvax slowly. "They are not." 4 minutes. He stood. "Helm," he commanded, voice steady. The entire bridge froze. "Move the fleet. Minimum safe distance. Now." Engines roared to life across 400 warships. Formation broke. Ships scattered outward, shields adjusting. On the tactical display, the target coordinate was suddenly empty. 3 minutes. Park let out a small breath of relief. "Thank you," she said quietly. Korvax did not respond. 2 minutes. The moon glowed brighter. Energy reached terrifying levels. 1 minute. Even from a safe distance, the fleet felt the vibration through space itself. Then, a beam of white gold light erupted from the hollow moon. It tore through the empty coordinate like the birth of a star. Space itself seemed to scream. The bridge fell silent. Had they stayed, there would be nothing left. The beam faded slowly. The moon dimmed. The weapon powered down. Governor Park looked back at him. "So," she said gently, "about that lunch meeting your ambassador mentioned." Korvax felt something shift inside him. This was not victory, but it was survival. Back on Vexoria Prime, Chancellor Vex received one message from Admiral Korvax. "We were not defeated. We were spared."
The Grand Senate Hall of Vexoria was louder than ever. News of the fleet's tactical repositioning had spread quickly. Some called it strategy, others called it cowardice. Chancellor Vex stood in silence as the transmission from Admiral Korvax replayed in the center of the chamber. "We were not defeated," Korvax's voice echoed. "We were spared." The recording ended. The chamber exploded with outrage. "Spared?" Senator Crix shouted. "We are the Vexorian Empire. No one spares us."
Another senator slammed her tail against the floor. "Recall the fleet! Send the first armada! Crush them properly!" Vex did not speak immediately. He watched the frozen image of the human weapon firing into empty space. That light, that power, it was not luck, it was preparation. "They knew," Vex said quietly. The room slowly grew quieter. "They knew we were coming," he continued, "months in advance. They built a weapon, placed it, calibrated it, and waited." "And they warned us," a younger senator muttered. "Yes," Vex replied. He turned away from the display. "If they wanted war, our fleet would be gone." Silence spread again, this time heavier. Senator Crix stepped forward. "Chancellor, this is humiliation. If we do not respond with strength, other systems will question our dominance." Vex narrowed his eyes. "Dominance means nothing if we are ashes." The chamber stiffened. He raised one of his 4 hands. "Tell me," Vex continued calmly, "if we send the first armada, what stops the humans from having 3 more weapons like that?" No one answered, because no one knew. "They have fought others," Vex said slowly, "and survived." Another senator spoke more carefully now. "What do you suggest?" Before Vex could answer, the tall doors of the Senate Hall opened. Ambassador Daniel Martinez walked in. Alone. No guards, no fear. He looked exactly the same as he had 3 days earlier, relaxed. He stopped at the center of the chamber. "Afternoon," he said politely. "I heard the kelp special was excellent today." Several senators growled angrily. Vex studied him closely. "You orchestrated this," the chancellor said. Martinez shook his head. "No, you did." A quiet wave of uncomfort moved across the room. "You threatened our fleet," Senator Crix snapped. Martinez's eyes turned serious. "No," he said calmly, "we protected our colony." He looked directly at Vex. "You declared war. We showed you the cost." The chancellor walked slowly down from his podium until he stood only a few steps away from the human ambassador. "How many?" Vex asked quietly. Martinez did not smile this time. "Enough." The single word felt heavier than any insult. "How many?" Vex pressed. "Enough." The chamber chilled. "But," Martinez added gently, "we would rather build trade routes than graveyards." The words hung in the air. "You expect us to simply accept this?" Crix demanded. Martinez shrugged slightly. "I expect you to think long-term." He gestured toward the display where the beam had fired. "That was 1 shot, 1 colony, 1 warning." He paused. "If this becomes a real war, there will be no warnings." Vex felt it again. Not fear, not anger, calculation. Perhaps the humans did not win with strength alone. Perhaps they won because they understood something deeper. War was not about pride, it was about survival. That evening, in a private chamber away from the shouting senators, Chancellor Vex asked a question no Vexorian leader had ever asked before. If the humans are right. The Senate chamber was empty now. The shouting had faded. The anger had cooled into uneasy silence. In a smaller private room behind the main hall, Chancellor Vex stood near a tall window overlooking the glowing capital city of Vexoria Prime. The lights of the city stretched endlessly into the horizon, an empire built over thousands of years. Behind him, Ambassador Daniel Martinez waited calmly. No guards, no weapons, just 2 leaders standing in a quiet room. Vex did not turn around when he spoke. "Do your people always respond this way?" "With preparation?" Martinez asked gently. "With restraint?" Martinez considered the question carefully. "Not always," he admitted. "We've made mistakes. Big ones. Our history is full of them." Vex slowly turned to face him. "Then why not strike us down when you had the chance?" Martinez's eyes softened. Because destroying your fleet would not end the war. It would weaken us, Vex replied. Yes, Martinez nodded, and then your people would demand revenge. You would send more ships, we would build bigger weapons, and eventually both sides would lose something they can't replace. Vex studied the human carefully. What cannot be replaced? Martinez's voice lowered. Children, cities, trust, the future. The words felt unfamiliar in the room. Vex crossed his arms. You speak of peace as if it is strength. It is, Martinez answered, but only if both sides are strong enough to choose it. Silence settled between them. Outside the window, ships moved through the sky in quiet patterns. You said there are more weapons, Vex said. Yes. Are they aimed at us now? Martinez shook his head. No. Why not? Because we don't point weapons at people we're still talking to. The answer surprised Vex. You are confident, the Chancellor said. Not confident, Martinez corrected, softly. Prepared. Vex walked toward a large holographic map of the sector. Human space and Vexorian space shared a long border. Trade lanes, resource zones, colonies. So what do you want? Vex asked finally. Martinez stepped closer to the map. A non-aggression pact to start, he said. Open communication channels, shared patrol zones to prevent misunderstandings. He paused. And trade. Vex raised an eyebrow ridge. Trade? You have rare minerals, we don't. We have agricultural tech, you don't. Martinez gave a small smile. And, apparently, we both served decent lunch. Despite himself, Vex almost smiled. Almost. You are asking me to stand before my Senate and say the humans are not enemies. I'm asking you to say they don't have to be. The room grew quiet again. Vex had spent his life expanding borders, winning wars, demanding obedience. No Vexorian leader had ever built power through partnership. It felt unfamiliar, and yet the image of that beam tearing through space remained in his mind. Power without warning, power controlled. We will consider your proposal, Vex said carefully. Martinez nodded. That's all we're asking. He turned toward the door, then stopped. Oh, he added casually, Governor Park says the Horizon Array is already being disarmed. Vex's eyes widened slightly. You trust us that much? Martinez looked back. No, he said honestly. We trust our preparations. And with that, he left the room. Chancellor Vex stood alone, staring at the sector map. For the first time in centuries, the Vexorian Empire was not deciding how to conquer. It was deciding how to coexist. But not everyone in the Empire agreed with peace. And far beyond the Senate walls, someone else had already decided war was still the better option.
Peace is never quiet. It shakes power. It threatens pride. And in the shadows of Vexoria Prime, peace was already creating enemies. Deep beneath the capital city, in a private military chamber far from the Senate, Senator Crix stood before a group of high-ranking commanders. Their armor reflected the dim red lighting of the war room. "This is weakness," Crix growled. "The Chancellor hesitates. The humans manipulate him." One commander shifted uneasily. "The Horizon Array nearly destroyed the Fourth Fleet." "Nearly," Crix snapped, "but it did not." Silence. Crix stepped closer to the holographic projection of human territory. "They bluff, they posture, they prepare traps, but they are still fewer than us." "Admiral Korvax disagrees," another officer said carefully. "Korvax survived because the humans allowed it. That is not mercy, that is control." The room fell silent. Crix lowered his voice. "If we accept peace now, we admit fear.
Other systems will see it. Our dominance will weaken. And if we attack again? The first commander asked. Crix's eyes narrowed. Then we attack properly. He tapped the hologram, zooming into a region far from New Carthage. A remote human research outpost, minimal population, no major colonies nearby. The officers leaned in. No warning this time. A surgical strike, fast, decisive. Destroy it before they can activate another weapon. One commander hesitated. Without Senate approval? Crix's voice turned sharp. The Senate is divided. The Chancellor is uncertain, but history remembers victories, not debates. The commanders exchanged uneasy glances. Pride, honor, fear of losing status, all powerful motivators. Finally, one of them nodded slowly. When? Crix smiled thinly. Within 48 hours. Meanwhile, in human space, Ambassador Martinez sat inside a quiet briefing room aboard a diplomatic station. Across from him stood General Rebecca Hayes of the Human Defense Network. "You look tired," she said. "Politics is exhausting," he replied. Hayes crossed her arms. "You really think they'll choose peace?" He paused. "I think the Chancellor might." "And the others?" He exhaled slowly. "That's what worries me." Hayes tapped a console. "We're detecting unusual Vexorian fleet movement, smaller group detached from the main armada." His expression changed. "Where?" "Near Outpost Sigma 9. His jaw tightened. "That's a civilian research facility." "Yes," Hayes confirmed. "Low defenses, no horizon array nearby." Silence filled the room. "So," Hayes said quietly, "what's the plan?" Martinez stood slowly. "We don't escalate." Hayes frowned. "If they strike first." "We respond," he said firmly, "but controlled. No annihilation." Hayes studied him carefully. "You're gambling." "Yes," Martinez agreed softly. "But if we answer every fear with destruction, we become exactly what they expect." He looked at the star map. "Open a channel to Chancellor Vex." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "You think he knows?" Martinez's voice was calm but serious. "I think he deserves to." On Vexoria Prime, Chancellor Vex stared at an urgent data feed. Unauthorized fleet movement. Orders signed by Senator Crix. Destination, Human Outpost Sigma 9. Vex felt something cold settle inside him. Peace had not yet begun, and already it was being tested. As Vex reached for the emergency command override, the rogue fleet jumped to hyperspace, and this time, the humans might not get a warning.
Outpost Sigma 9 was small, too small for war. It floated quietly near a pale blue gas giant, its metal structure reflecting soft light from the nearby star. Inside were scientists, engineers, and a handful of security personnel. 200 civilians. No warships, no superweapons, just research. Dr. Alina Rao was in the middle of reviewing mineral samples when the station lights flickered. "Power fluctuation?" she asked. A technician shook his head, pale. "No hyperspace signatures detected." "How many?" The answer came in a whisper. 27 Vexorian cruisers. Panic spread instantly. On the main screen, space tore open in violent flashes of blue-white light. Warships emerged, weapons already charging. No warning, no message. Dr. Rao felt her hands tremble. "Open a channel." Static. Then, a cold Vexorian voice filled the station. "This facility is in violation of Imperial security interests. You will not be granted evacuation time." Screams echoed in the background. Back on Vexoria Prime, Chancellor Vex slammed his override authorization into the command console.
"Abort this action immediately!" he roared. But the signal delay was too long. The rogue fleet had already opened fire. On the bridge of the lead cruiser, Senator Crix stood proudly beside the acting commander. "Fire on the outer structure," he ordered. "Disable their communications first." Energy beams tore through space. Sigma-9's outer solar panels exploded. Metal debris scattered like broken glass. Inside the station, alarm screamed. "Shields at 20%, a security officer shouted. "We don't have military-grade shields," someone else yelled. Dr. Rao stared at the approaching ships. "We're civilians," she whispered. Light years away, General Hayes received the alert. Impact confirmed at Sigma-9. Martinez closed his eyes for one brief second. Then he opened them again. "Deploy Rapid Response Fleet 2. Hayes hesitated. "That's a combat group." "Yes," Martinez said firmly, "but controlled engagement only. Disable, do not destroy." She nodded and issued the command. Human destroyers launched instantly from hidden positions in nearby sectors. They had not placed a superweapon here, but they had not left it unprotected either. Back at Sigma-9, another blast struck the station. Hull breach. Sections vented into space. Dr. Rao grabbed onto a console as gravity fluctuated. "Evacuate to internal shelters," security shouted. Then, a new flash of light appeared on scanners. Human ships, fast, sleek, arriving in tight formation. On the Vexorian cruiser, an officer turned in shock. "Human ships incoming!" Crix's eyes widened. How were they here so quickly? The human ships did not hesitate. Precision strikes hit the Vexorian weapon arrays. Not full power, just enough. One cruiser lost engines, another lost shields, a third drifted helplessly. "No total destruction," the human fleet commander transmitted calmly. "Withdraw immediately." Crix growled. "Continue firing." But then, a targeted pulse weapon disabled their lead ship's weapon system completely. Dead in space. The message came again. "This is your final warning. Retreat." The Vexorian commanders looked at Crix. For the first time, they hesitated. This was not a helpless colony. This was not easy prey. The humans had responded in minutes, prepared. Again. Crix's claws dug into the railing. "Fall back," he spat. The remaining cruisers jumped to hyperspace, dragging damaged ships with them. Silence returned to Sigma-9. Smoke drifted through broken corridors, but the station still stood. Dr. Rao looked out at the human ships holding position. They had come, not with annihilation, but with control. On Vexoria Prime, Chancellor Vex closed his eyes. The rogue strike had failed, but the damage was done. Trust, once cracked, was harder to repair than any warship. Now the question was no longer whether peace was possible. It was whether humanity would still offer it after being attacked without warning.
Smoke still drifted through the damaged corridors of Sigma-9. Emergency lights flashed red. Medical teams moved quickly between the injured. Thankfully, most had made it to internal shelters in time. No mass casualties, but it had been close. Very close. Dr. Alina Rao sat on the floor outside the med bay, her hands still shaking. She stared at the cracked wall across from her. "They didn't even warn us," she whispered. A young technician nearby wiped tears from his face. "We weren't soldiers." "No," she said softly. "We weren't." On the command deck of the Human Response Fleet, General Hayes watched the damage reports come in. Structural losses at 30%, civilian injuries confirmed,
No fatalities. She exhaled slowly. That's the only good news today. Behind her, Ambassador Martinez stood silently, reading the same report. They crossed the line, Hayes said firmly. This was not a fleet maneuver. This was an attack. Martinez nodded once. Yes. We should activate the secondary arrays, Hayes continued. Send a message they won't misunderstand. That meant overwhelming force, total dominance. Martinez closed the report. If we do that, he said quietly, there will be no path back. Hayes turned toward him. They attacked civilians. Yes, and next time they might not miss. I know. His voice cracked slightly, not with fear, but with frustration. Open a secure channel to Chancellor Vex. Hayes hesitated. After this, especially after this. On Vexoria Prime, Chancellor Vex stood alone when the call request appeared. Human diplomatic channel. He accepted immediately. Martinez appeared on the screen. He did not smile this time. Sigma 9, Martinez said calmly. Vex lowered his head slightly. Unauthorized action. 27 cruisers, Martinez replied. That's not a patrol mistake. No, Vex admitted. Children were on that station. Scientists, engineers, families. Vex felt the weight of those words. I have already ordered Senator Cricks detained, Vex said. He acted without approval. Your ships fired, Martinez replied, and your ships showed restraint, Vex answered quietly. You could have destroyed them. Silence filled the channel. Martinez finally spoke. We're at a breaking point, Chancellor. I know. If we escalate now, this becomes total war. Yes. And if we don't respond strongly enough, your Senate may see it as weakness. Vex exhaled slowly. My Senate already sees hesitation as weakness. Martinez leaned forward slightly. Then show them something else. Vex looked up. Show them leadership. The words hung between them. Vex had built his career on strength, but perhaps strength had another form. What do you propose? Vex asked. A joint investigation, publicly, human and Vexorian officials together. We show both sides that rogue aggression has consequences. Vex considered. That will anger many. It will save more. Silence again. Finally, Vex nodded once. Agreed. Martinez held his gaze. Chancellor, if this happens again, it won't, Vex said firmly. For the first time, there was no uncertainty in his voice. When the transmission ended, Vex stood very still. The Empire was watching him. The humans were watching him. History was watching him. He had a choice, not between war and peace anymore, but between pride and responsibility. The next day, before the entire Senate and every broadcast system in the Empire, Chancellor Vex prepared to speak, and what he said would decide the future of two civilizations.
The Grand Senate Hall was filled beyond capacity. Every seat occupied, every camera active. Across Vexorian space, billions watched. Some expected anger, others expected retaliation. Many demanded it. Chancellor Vex stepped forward to the central podium, the same podium where he had declared war only days earlier. The memory of the war horn still echoed in the minds of the people. He stood tall, but his expression was different, calmer, measured. Behind him, a large projection showed images from Sigma 9, the damaged research station, civilians being treated, human ships holding position instead of firing back. A quiet reminder. Vex began to speak. Citizens of the Vexorian Empire, days ago I stood here and declared war upon humanity. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. I believed, he continued, that strength required dominance, that security required control. He paused. I was wrong. The chamber exploded with whispers. Senator Crick's empty seat was clearly visible. The attack on Sigma-9, Vex said firmly, was unauthorized. It violated my direct order to pause hostilities. It endangered civilians. It endangered our future. A senior senator stood abruptly. The humans are our enemies. Vex turned toward him. Were they acting as enemies when they spared the Fourth Fleet? Silence. Were they acting as enemies when they disabled but did not destroy our cruisers? No answer. Vex's voice grew stronger. They had the power to annihilate us. They chose restraint. He looked across the chamber. What does that tell us? A younger senator spoke hesitantly. That they are confident. Yes, Vex said, and prepared. He stepped forward. But preparation is not aggression. He let that sentence settle. For generations, we have measured strength by how many systems we conquered. He gestured toward the image of Sigma-9. Today, I measure strength differently. The chamber fell completely silent. Strength, Vex said clearly, is having the power to destroy and choosing not to. The words echoed through the hall. Gasps, shock, disbelief. We will not continue this war, Vex declared. Some senators stood in protest. Vex raised all four arms. I will not lead our people into a conflict we are not prepared to win. That quieted them. Instead, he continued, we will pursue formal negotiations with the Human Alliance. The protests grew louder. Enough, Vex roared. The chamber froze. You have seen the Horizon Array. You have seen their response speed. You have seen their discipline. He leaned forward. And you have seen that they prefer peace when given the chance. He straightened again. We can cling to pride and risk extinction. He paused. Or we can choose survival. The silence now was heavy, but thoughtful. We are not surrendering, Vex said firmly. We are evolving. When he finished, he did not wait for applause. He stepped back. Across human space, Martinez watched the speech quietly. General Hayes stood beside him. Well, she said softly, that took courage. Martinez nodded. Yes. He allowed himself a small breath of relief. This is where real work begins. Hayes looked at him. You trust him? Martinez thought carefully. I trust that he understands the cost. Outside, ships still guarded borders. Weapons still existed. Nothing had disappeared overnight, but something had shifted, and sometimes that was enough to change history. But peace talks are never simple, because even when leaders agree, old fears and old warriors do not disappear so easily.
The peace talks were not held on Earth. They were not held on Vexoria Prime either. Instead, both sides agreed on neutral ground, a diplomatic station orbiting a quiet, unclaimed star. No weapons allowed within firing range, no hidden fleets nearby, or at least none officially. Ambassador Daniel Martinez arrived first. He wore a simple dark suit, no medals, no symbols of victory, just a representative. Minutes later, Chancellor Vex entered the chamber with two advisors. His posture was tall, but less rigid than before. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. This time, there were no war horns, no threats, just a table. Chancellor, Martinez said calmly. Vex replied. They both sat. The room felt heavier than any battlefield, because this time the future would not be decided by weapons, but by words. Vex spoke first. The rogue fleet commanders have been detained. Senator Crix will face public tribunal. Martinez nodded once. That matters. It must, Vex said, if peace is to mean anything. A human legal advisor activated a holographic display between them. "Proposal Draft 1, she said. Immediate ceasefire, border stabilization, joint patrol oversight." Vex studied the projection. "You request shared patrol access inside Vexorian-controlled space." "Limited," Martinez clarified, "and transparent. No hidden deployments." One of Vex's advisors bristled. "That is a violation of sovereignty." Martinez leaned forward slightly. "It's verification, not control." Silence. The word trust was not spoken, but it hung over the table. After a moment, Vex nodded slowly. "Conditional approval. Joint patrol routes will be monitored by both sides equally." "Agreed," Martinez replied. The discussion continued for hours. Trade agreements, resource exchange, scientific cooperation, and finally, weapons transparency. "The Horizon Array," Vex said carefully. "Will it remain operational?" Martinez answered honestly, "Yes." The room tightened. "But," Martinez continued, "we are willing to share monitoring data. You will know if it powers up." Vex's eyes narrowed slightly. "And if we build similar defensive systems?" Martinez gave a small nod. "We would expect the same transparency." The conversation was not easy. At times, voices rose, old fears surfaced, but no one walked away, because everyone in the room had seen what war would look like, and none of them wanted to see it again. As the session ended, Vex stood slowly. "This is unfamiliar," he admitted. Martinez almost smiled. "Peace usually is." Vex studied the human carefully. "When you yawned in our Senate chamber," Vex said, "were you truly that calm?" Martinez paused. Then he answered honestly, "No." Vex blinked. "I was terrified," Martinez said quietly, "but fear does not help anyone think clearly." The Chancellor considered that. "You hit it well." Martinez shrugged slightly. "We've had practice." For the first time since this crisis began, Vex allowed himself a faint smile. Perhaps not friendship yet, but understanding. As they prepared to leave the chamber, an aide rushed in. "Chancellor," the aide said urgently, "long-range sensors detect unknown fleet signatures entering the outer sector." Martinez and Vex looked at each other instantly. "Unknown?" Martinez asked. "Not human? Not Vexorian?" The room went cold. Peace had barely begun, and something else had just arrived. A new fleet had entered the sector, and this time, neither humanity nor the Vexorian Empire had prepared for it.
The unknown fleet did not send greetings. It did not announce war. It simply appeared. Dozens of massive ships, larger than Vexorian dreadnoughts, darker than anything humanity had built. Their hulls absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Their formations were too precise, too silent. On the diplomatic station, warning alarms began to pulse softly. Martinez and Vex stood side by side at the main observation window. "That is not one of yours?" Vex asked. "No," Martinez replied. "And not one of ours." The station commander rushed in. "The fleet is broadcasting a signal." "Put it through," Martinez ordered. The screen flickered. An alien face appeared, metallic skin, glowing white eyes, expression unreadable. "This sector is now under Dominion authority," the voice said flatly. "All military forces will power down and prepare for assimilation." Vex's jaw tightened. "Assimilation?" "Your civilizations have demonstrated military capacity. You will now be integrated." The transmission ended. Silence followed. Hayes's voice came through Martinez's comm device. "We're detecting weapon systems charging. This isn't diplomacy." Vex looked toward Martinez. Days ago, they had nearly destroyed each other.
Now they stood facing something far worse. "They waited," Vex said quietly. "They watched us weaken each other." Martinez nodded once. "That's what predators do." Outside, one of the unknown ships fired a warning beam. It sliced through a distant asteroid as if it were dust. The message was clear: submit or be erased. The station commander looked at both leaders. "Orders?" Martinez glanced at Vex. For a brief moment, no words were needed. Pride no longer mattered. History no longer mattered. Survival did. Vex straightened to his full height. "Open a joint command channel, human and Vexorian fleet combined." Martinez activated his comm. "General Hayes, execute Defense Formation Omega. Coordinate with Vexorian Fleet Command." Hayes didn't hesitate. "Already transmitting shared tactical data." Vex looked surprised. "You planned for external threats too?" Martinez gave a faint smile. "We plan for everything." Within minutes, human destroyers and Vexorian cruisers formed a united line in front of the station. Different designs, different technologies, but now one formation. The unknown fleet fired first. Energy blasts struck the combined shields. The impact shook space itself. "Shield integrity holding at 80%, a human officer shouted. "Return fire," Vex commanded. Human precision strikes targeted weapon emitters. Vexorian heavy cannons slammed into enemy shields. Together, their firepower forced the unknown fleet to slow its advance. "They did not expect cooperation," Hayes observed. "No," Martinez said quietly. "They expected division." Another blast hit. The station trembled. Vex looked toward Martinez. "If we survive this—" "We will," Martinez interrupted calmly. For the first time since their conflict began, Vex believed him completely. The combined fleet adjusted formation seamlessly. Human ships covered Vexorian blind spots. Vexorian cruisers shielded human flanks. Minutes stretched like hours. Then, a coordinated strike from both sides pierced the lead Dominion ship's defenses. The massive vessel exploded in silent light. The rest of the unknown fleet hesitated. Then they began to withdraw. No final threat, no declaration, just retreat. Silence slowly returned to the sector. Breathing resumed across two civilizations. Vex exhaled deeply. "We would have fallen alone," he admitted. "Yes," Martinez said honestly. "But together," Vex continued, watching the fleeing ships, "we stood." The war that almost destroyed them had just forged something stronger. And now it was time to decide what that strength would become. The battlefield was quiet. Wreckage drifted slowly through space, glowing faintly in the distant starlight. Human ships and Vexorian vessels remained in formation, no longer aiming at each other, but guarding one another. On the diplomatic station, the emergency lights had dimmed. The danger had passed. For now. Chancellor Vex stood beside Ambassador Martinez once more, looking out at the stars. "History will record this day," Vex said quietly. "It usually does," Martinez replied. Vex gave a faint, almost amused breath. "Days ago we stood ready to destroy you." "And we were ready to survive you," Martinez answered. There was no anger in his voice, just truth. Vex folded his arms behind his back. "We mistook your calmness for weakness." Martinez smiled slightly. "A lot of species do." Vex turned to face him. "When you asked me, war now or after lunch," the Chancellor said, "I believed you were mocking us." "I was buying time," Martinez admitted. "For what?" "For you to think." The words lingered. Outside, recovery crews began collecting debris from both fleets, human and Vexorian alike. No distinction. General Hayes entered the observation deck. "Damage reports finalized," she said. "Minimal losses. Joint fleet coordination was efficient." Vex nodded slowly. Our systems adapted quickly to shared command protocols. Hayes crossed her arms, almost like we were meant to fight together instead of against each other. Silence followed that statement. Not uncomfortable silence, thoughtful silence. The Dominion fleet had not returned. Long-range sensors showed them retreating beyond the sector. "They will be back one day," Vex said. "Yes," Martinez agreed. "And next time," Vex continued, "they will expect us to stand together." Martinez looked at him carefully. "Will we?" That was the real question. Vex walked toward the central communication console. "Prepare a sector-wide broadcast," he ordered. Moments later, his image appeared not only across Vexorian systems, but across human colonies as well. He did not stand in a war chamber this time. He stood beside a human ambassador. "Citizens of Vexoria," he began, his voice steady, "and people of the Human Alliance." Across two civilizations, billions watched. "Days ago, we prepared to destroy each other. Today, we defended each other." He paused. "The difference was not power." He glanced briefly at Martinez. "It was choice." Martinez felt something shift in the room. Not strategy, not politics. Respect. Vex continued. "The Dominion believed we were divided. They believed pride would blind us." His voice grew stronger. "They were wrong." A quiet wave of emotion spread across both species listening. "We will formalize a defensive alliance with the Human Alliance, not out of fear, not out of surrender." He straightened fully, "but out of understanding." Martinez stepped forward slightly. "Humanity accepts," he said simply. "No dramatic music, no cheering crowds, just two former enemies standing side by side." After the broadcast ended, Vex looked at Martinez once more. "So," Vex said carefully, "about that lunch you mentioned." Martinez finally allowed himself a full smile. "I hear the station cafeteria has excellent sea kelp today." Vex tilted his head slightly. "It is an acquired taste." Martinez shrugged. "So is peace." For the first time, Chancellor Vex laughed. And in that quiet laugh, something powerful settled between them. Not dominance, not fear, partnership. The war horn had once echoed through the Senate Hall, but it had not sounded again, because sometimes the greatest victory is the war that never truly begins. The end. May this message strengthen your faith and renew your hope. Thank you for staying until the end. If this touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Astro Realms for more uplifting content. May God's blessings overflow in your life. See you soon.